Top 5 financial mistakes to avoid in your 20s and 30s. There's a ton of financial advice out there, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming to figure out what to prioritize. These are 5 major financial mistakes that many people make. These mistakes can be costly, but they're avoidable. In the next few minutes, we'll walk through these mistakes, explain why they're so harmful, and discuss how you can avoid falling into the same traps. Mistake number 1. Failing to build an emergency fund. It's easy to think you don't need an emergency fund when you're young and healthy, living life, and not imagining anything going wrong. But trust me, unexpected expenses can happen at any time. Life doesn't follow your schedule, and when it throws a curveball, you need a financial cushion to fall back on. Without an emergency fund, you're more likely to end up relying on credit cards or loans to handle surprise expenses. And as we know, that can quickly spiral into high-interest debt, especially if you're already living paycheck to paycheck. Missing work due to illness, car repairs, or unexpected medical costs can add up fast, and if you don't have cash set aside, you're going to find yourself in financial stress. Emergencies are a part of life. It's not about if they'll happen, it's when. Not having the funds available to deal with them can seriously affect your financial health and keep you from building wealth over time. The solution is straightforward. You need to start building an emergency fund. The goal should be to save enough to cover 3 to 6 months' worth of living expenses. This may sound like a lot, but you don't have to do it all at once. Start by setting up an automatic transfer from your checking account to a savings account. Even if it's just 20,000 naira a month at first, consistency is key. Over time, you'll be surprised how quickly it adds up. Aim for a high-yield savings account so your money can earn interest while you wait for emergencies to happen, or rather, to not happen. Also, don't dip into this fund for anything other than real emergencies. It's tempting to use it for vacations or purchases, but it's meant to keep you safe from financial catastrophe, not to fund your lifestyle. Mistake number 2. Neglecting retirement savings. Thinking about retirement when you're in your 20s or 30s is probably the last thing on your mind. You're young, you're working hard, and the future may feel very far away. But here's the truth. If you don't start planning for retirement now, it could make your life much harder later on. Waiting too long can put you at a huge disadvantage down the line. In Nigeria, the concept of retirement planning might not always be emphasized in the way it should be, especially for younger people. While there are government and private pension schemes like the Contributory Pension Scheme, CPS, many individuals don't fully engage with it or neglect it entirely. Not thinking about retirement early means you're missing out on the key benefit of compound interest. The earlier you start saving and investing, the more your money grows over time. If you wait too long, you'll have to contribute much more later to achieve the same retirement goal. It's easy to get caught up in short-term goals like paying rent, buying a car, or saving for a vacation, but you can't afford to ignore long-term goals, especially retirement. If you delay saving, you'll be forced to play catch-up, and that's a much harder game. Additionally, Nigeria's economy can be unpredictable. With inflation rates fluctuating and the cost of living rising, relying solely on the national pension scheme may not be enough to sustain your lifestyle once you retire. That's why building your own retirement savings beyond the mandatory pension contribution is so important. How to fix this? The first step is to start contributing to your pension scheme as early as possible. If you're employed in Nigeria, your employer is required to contribute to your pension plan under the Contributory Pension Scheme. But don't just stop there. It's important to be proactive and ensure that you're maximizing your contributions. If you're self-employed or working in the informal sector, you can still take advantage of voluntary pension contributions. Beyond your mandatory pension contributions, consider setting up an additional savings or investment plan that will help you build wealth outside of your pension scheme. You can open a voluntary contributory pension scheme or look into investment vehicles like mutual funds or stocks through the Nigerian Stock Exchange, NSE. Both options can offer you greater returns compared to a traditional savings account, and they allow your money to grow at a much faster rate. Also, in Nigeria, robo-advisors and digital wealth platforms are increasingly accessible, offering a simple and low-cost way to start investing. Even with a small amount of money, you can begin to invest in stocks or bonds that will appreciate over time. The earlier you start, the more you can take advantage of long-term growth and compound interest. Even if it's just a small percentage of your income at first, the power of time is on your side. A good rule of thumb: aim to save at least 10 to 15% of your income towards retirement. If you're self-employed, try to create a plan where you're regularly contributing to an investment account or pension scheme. The earlier you start, the less you'll have to worry about your retirement when it finally comes. Mistake number 3: living beyond your means. Third mistake to avoid is living beyond your means. This is something that can sneak up on you, especially when you're in your 20s and 30s. There's a lot of pressure to keep up with your peers, whether it's through your clothing, your car, or even your lifestyle on social media. It's easy to fall into the trap of spending more than you earn, but this is one of the most dangerous things you can do for your financial future. Living beyond your means you're spending more money than you actually have. It often leads to using credit cards to finance your lifestyle, and before you know it, you're carrying a significant amount of debt. The issue with this is twofold. First, you're not building wealth, and second, you're accumulating high-interest debt that can spiral out of control. When you're not mindful about your spending, you might think you're in a comfortable position, but in reality, you're just one emergency or unexpected expense away from falling into financial turmoil. The longer you live beyond your means, the harder it will be to climb out of debt. How to fix this? The solution here is simple, but not always easy. Live within your means. Start by creating a budget. Track your income and expenses to see exactly where your money is going. You might find that you're spending money on things you don't need, like subscription services you barely use or eating out too often. A good rule of thumb is the 50/30/20 budget. Allocate 50% of your income to necessities, like rent, utilities, and groceries, 30% to discretionary spending, like entertainment or dining out, and 20% to savings and debt repayment. If you're spending more than 30% of your income on discretionary items, it's time to cut back. Living within your means doesn't mean depriving yourself of everything fun. It just means prioritizing what's important and being more conscious of your spending habits. It's about making choices that will benefit you in the long term, instead of relying on credit or borrowing to keep up with appearances. Mistake number 4: carrying high-interest debt. When you're in your 20s and 30s, it's easy to accumulate debt, whether it's from credit cards, personal loans, or even payday loans. But the problem is, high-interest debt can prevent you from achieving your financial goals and building wealth in the long term. The reason high-interest debt is so dangerous is simple: it compounds. If you only make the minimum payment on a credit card, for example, you're mostly paying off interest and barely touching the principal balance. This means the debt can take years or even decades to pay off, costing you much more than what you initially borrowed. In fact, high-interest debt can become a financial prison, where your money is constantly tied up in paying off what you owe instead of saving or investing for the future. The longer you carry this type of debt, the harder it becomes to get out of the cycle, and that can make it difficult to make progress toward financial freedom. How to fix this? The key to fixing this is paying off your high-interest debt as quickly as possible. Start by tackling your highest interest debts first. This is called the debt avalanche method, and it's the most efficient way to reduce the total amount of interest you pay. You can also consider consolidating your debt or transferring balances to a credit card with a lower interest rate, which can save you money in the long run. If you're having trouble making progress, consider speaking with a financial advisor or looking into debt repayment programs that can help you take control of your finances. Once your debt is under control, make sure to avoid taking on new high-interest debt. This means avoiding the temptation to use credit cards for purchases you can't afford and always paying your bills on time to avoid late fees and interest charges. Bonus tip: as soon as you pay off your high-interest debt, take that money you were spending on minimum payments and put it into savings or investment accounts. This will help you start building wealth instead of paying off past mistakes. Finally, the 5th and final mistake we're going to talk about today is not investing early enough. Now, you might be thinking, I'm still young, I don't need to worry about investing yet. But this is one of the biggest financial errors you can make. The earlier you start investing, the more time your money has to grow, and this can have a huge impact on your wealth over the long run. Many people wait until their 30s or even later to start investing because they think they don't have enough money to invest or they simply don't know where to start. But the truth is, time is your best asset when it comes to investing. When you invest early, you're able to take advantage of compound interest, which means your money earns returns on the returns it already made. That's the secret to building wealth over time. The earlier you start, the less you have to invest to reach your financial goals. And if you delay investing, you'll have to play catch-up later, contributing more money to make up for lost time. Another reason not investing early is a mistake is that inflation erodes your purchasing power over time. While your money sits in a low-interest savings account, inflation might be growing faster than your savings, meaning you're losing money over time, even if your balance looks the same. How to fix this? Start investing as soon as possible. You don't need a lot of money to get started, and you definitely don't need to be an expert in the stock market. A great place to start is with low-cost index funds or ETFs, exchange-traded funds, which give you exposure to a broad range of assets and are less risky than individual stocks. Another great option, especially if you're just starting out, is robo-advisors, which are automated investment platforms that can help you get started with minimal effort or knowledge. Many of these platforms are low-cost and can help you build a diversified portfolio without having to worry about picking individual stocks. Remember, it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. Start early, stay consistent, and let compound interest work its magic. And there you have it, the top 5 financial mistakes to avoid in your 20s and 30s. These mistakes can set you back financially and make it harder to build the life you want. But with a little discipline and planning, you can avoid them and put yourself on the path to financial success. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any future videos.